I'm Jackie Cohen-Roth, founder and CEO of Cannabis MD. Welcome to another Cannabis MD video profile, or CBMD profile. I'm so excited to share these discussions and conversations that I have with our audience, where I have the opportunity and privilege to chat with leaders in the cannabis industry, whether it is their focus is on medical cannabis or the recreational market, a combination of both. We're talking with, or I'm talking with scientists, researchers, advocates, policy influencers, you name it, folks that are having a positive impact on the cannabis industry of today, and certainly with their advocacy work on the future of the cannabis industry of tomorrow. So today I am really excited to chat with Gia Moron, who is president of Women Grow. Good morning, Gia.
Good morning, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And returning the favor is that I was really excited to be part of one of your Instagram events a couple of weeks ago. So this is
That was awesome.
yeah, turning the table, so to speak, turning the
I love
screen.
it.
Yeah, so sharing your background. So, as president, Gia oversees the company's day to day operations, its internal and external communications, education, programming, strategic partnerships. Gia began working with Women Grow in 2017 as director of communications after transitioning from Women Grow New York City market in 2016. She has over 25 years experience in public relations. In 2012, Gia launched GVM Communications, her own public relations, brand strategy, and business development firm. Her client base ranges from small to mid-sized businesses, nonprofit organizations, entrepreneurs, authors, and more. Prior to launching her own firm, she worked on Wall Street for 15 years at one of the leading investment banks. And I think maybe that's where you met our mutual friend, Zena. Does that
No,
ring a bell?
believe it or not, I didn't. I actually met Zena here in the industry.
Zena Ugrinsky is who we're referring to.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
Me too. Yeah, so Zena, there's a shout out to you. Um, so let's see. So diving right in then. So what was the reason for your pivot to the cannabis
The
industry?
industry. So it's interesting. So as you mentioned, and thank you very much for the intro. So I started so after being downsized in 2011, so that was on the heels, right, of the financial crisis. I decided to launch my own company.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is that while I knew I still wanted to do PR and some of the same work, it was something else I wanted to do. I just didn't know what that was. And so I found myself actually going back to the work I had been doing, not only for 15 years on Wall Street, but prior to that, I was in corporate entertainment for 6, 7 years doing the same thing. So it was a lot of the same work, which was fine, but I was ready for something new and different. And believe it or not, I was in the middle of pitching a client for a cover story for a publication and had seen a profile on Jane West, who is the founder of Women Grow,
Mhm.
and realized, oh, that's the same woman I saw on that 2020 special some time ago. And so I just started researching. And what's interesting is I had already been looking at the documentaries that were running on CNBC and coverage on Bloomberg about this, emerging industry.
Mhm.
And it didn't seem right to me. I was really taken aback, like, wait, what do they mean? Like, marijuana is the new thing. But at the same time, I realized when the financial market started talking about it, it was something that I learned having been on Wall Street for some time. Begin to look at the trends. If this is what you see that's coming up, you need to pay attention. And so, in learning more about uh, what Women Grow, was about in the industry, I had an interest. And much like everyone else, I thought I needed to open a dispensary or, have a cultivation. And only to learn that through my research, I found that there was a Women Grow. At the time, they were calling it chapters. And then we switched the name to markets. But At the time, I learned that there was a Women Grow chapter here in New York City, where I'm located. And I went to one of the meetings. I was apprehensive. Of course, there was still a little bit of the stigma there. But what stood out to me most in all the research that I had done, no one looked like me, right? And so while I loved what Women Grow represented, and which is what I felt drawn to them, is that they wanted to get more women into the industry. I just hadn't seen any women of color
Mhm.
that they were profiling. So I thought, well, this can't be right. Coming from New York City, knowing it's one of the cities in the United States with the largest number of arrests for marijuana crimes, right? And
Mhm.
so arrests. So that's why, I was drawn to this. Like, if they're legalizing it, but they've arrested so many Black and brown young men and women for this, I want to learn more about it.
Mhm.
I'm a daughter of a retired New York City police detective. My family comes from law enforcement. But the one thing I had heard time and time again from my relatives, and including my father, is they really didn't see cannabis as a criminalized offense. They just didn't, right? So it was nothing that they looked down upon, but there was still the stigma. And so finding a Women Grow event here in New York, believe it or not, it happened to have been just in a regular building. Uh, when I walked through the door, I was so surprised how crowded it was. And I couldn't believe it was happening here in my city. And I just kept looking around like, why didn't anyone say anything? Why didn't it, like, just more surprise. But I knew at that moment that I was onto something.
What year was this?
2015.
2015. Okay.
2015.
Yeah.
And I had already started, doing a little bit of the research around late 2012, 13, and then becoming more serious about my research in 2014. But again, it was still so early, and I didn't know very many people then. But
Mhm.
that's why the reading led me to Women Grow. And I felt at that point, at that very first meeting, again, I walked in with the intention of, I'm going to learn how to grow. I'm going to learn how to open up a dispensary. And it was through their signature networking event that I learned that what I was currently doing in my business, which was PR, brand development, brand strategy, and business development, that I was told could be done in cannabis.
Mhm.
And I was so surprised. Like, at that moment, it's when it registered. This is a commodity. This is a real industry. Everything that any other operating industry needs, this is going to need in order to support itself as it continues to grow, pun intended.
Mhm.
And so that's really how the pivot began, is once I understood what the foundation, folks were building, I wanted to become a part of that.
Mhm.
And once I understood that the services that were needed in order to support this foundation, I knew I had found a new place.
Yeah, and when you talked about exactly, I mean, your experience as a secret sauce to being a successful entrepreneur is to recognize an opportunity, there's a void which needs to be filled, and to take your skill set and what you've been doing and pivot.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
And it's not, of course, that we're saying it's easy, but just to recognize that there is an opportunity and you have a solution. There's a need and you offer a solution.
yeah, yeah, I think so. But it's also, I wanted to be a part of the blueprint
Hmm.
that was building this industry. I came to this, yes, I started my own company, and I thought, I still have it. It's doing really well. I've got an amazing team. And I think that we're making a difference on that side.
Hmm.
But on the women's side, I wanted to be a part of uh, a group of people that were making a change. So
Right.
what I recognize is that I had been in an industry that had always been hard on women, meaning financial
Yeah.
services. There weren't often opportunities for minorities in the industry. And there were just the constant struggles that we hear time and time again from other industries. And I thought, well, here we have an emerging one.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we change, right? We're at the onset of it. Why can't we make the change that we want to see and stop creating the same patterns that we see over and over, whether if it's in league, in law or in marketing or in medical, it's always the same topic of discussions. We're not seeing enough women. We're not seeing enough minorities in the forefront. They're not listening to the small people. And I thought, no, we can actually be a part of this change. And so I think that was more the attraction. But I'd say, in addition to that, when I fully began to understand what this plant meant medically, I thought this can make a difference in the lives of so many people, and I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's truly powerful. Actually, prior to getting online with you, is writing up the power of women, and particularly the moms within this industry and the power of their advocacy. I've had the opportunity to get to know Hannah Deacon. I don't know if you know her story. She's in the UK. Her son Alfie is one of two to receive a prescription, as it's referred to in the UK, versus a recommendation for
Right.
medical cannabis, and that um, she's changing. I mean, certainly the life of her son Alfie, the life of her family, with the impact of having these seizure disorders on the entire family. But then it just snowballs. I mean, you're starting off in New York, your experience, and now you're president of this national organization, and it's tremendous. I applaud you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been interesting.
Yeah. And so I would say, what are the challenges right now? I mean, it's kind of an obvious one with COVID. So the impact of COVID, you've been, am I correct, is that Women Grow has been an event driven organization?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when
Yeah.
when you pull back the layers, in essence, we're bringing people together, right? So we're the largest professional network in the cannabis industry for women. It's not exclusive to women, but the target are women. But we have a good number of men that come to a number of our events, and we had market leaders across the country that were hosting what we called signature networking events.
Mhm.
And this was the great opportunity for like minds to come together and to network. There's always an education element to the meetings, whether if it's a keynote speaker or a panel discussion. And then, it closes with the networking session. And what was so great about those events and those monthly events, which were typically held the first Thursday of the month. But what was amazing is that these are meetings that many of the leading women in the industry today started out at a Women Grow meeting back in 2015.
Mhm.
So the company was founded in Denver, Colorado, and then it just grew from there. Dr. Shonda Macias is the chairwoman and CEO, and I'm the president. And we both made investments in the company, and actually have our prior CEO relocated the company to the East Coast. So we actually started in the West Coast, relocated to the East Coast. But that said, what's amazing even about that is thinking how the industry began emerging on the West Coast, but seeing how quickly it's grown on the East Coast. So it made sense for us to begin to build the company here. But it's honestly, the events that we had were where many of the women in the industry today started out. Either they met a business partner there,
Mhm.
they met some of the people who help them run their companies, they met some of their service providers. It was honestly the best resource center, right, for everyone to come together. And what was amazing is to see the growth of businesses, not only month over month, but year over year. one of the young ladies who was actually a market leader, I remember meeting her with just a bar of soap. And she had come to our annual leadership summit, which again, women from all over, not only the country, but the world. We
Mhm.
used to have women coming from Europe and the Caribbean and all over North America just to come to our leadership summit. So it was incredible to have just, majority women really just coming together to get this education and knowledge in 2 days. But one of the women, as I said, I met her when she only had a bar of soap. And today, not only does she have a full skincare line, she's also launched a medical company. And so she has expanded incredibly in the state of Arizona. And again, there are so many stories like that that have emerged from our meetings. And so, yeah, I mean, yes, we're an events company, but our mission is to connect, educate, empower, and inspire the next generation of leaders. And that fits so well to what we saw at our signature networking events.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you do have, just looking at well, what is your membership base? And I was going to say, looking at the numbers on social media, whether it's on the LinkedIn or on Instagram, I mean, multi-thousand. So, um, what's the community base? What's that number?
Wow. So it's interesting. So, we started as a membership
Yeah.
organization, and I mean, we were well into like thousands, right?
Mhm.
Over time. And then the attendance at our events, depending on where we were in the country, there were some meetings that were drawing like up to 300 people a month
Uh-huh.
just coming to these events. And then our community on social media, we're probably in total over a 500,000,
That's
with
phenomenal.
impressions of up to 2.5 million people. And so to us, while so many people met in person, there's such a bigger community, of course, on social media, right? Because you
Right.
can reach further and greater numbers of people. But it's the access to the information that the people want.
Right.
And it's incredible.
Yeah, well, while we're speaking of it, what's the IG handle for?
So anyone can find us on any of the channels of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, Instagram at Women Grow.
Okay, the easy
Find us
enough.
anywhere, follow us, and we do our best to put as much content up there as possible, because I think we think of everyone out there as where we all started out, right? When you're interested in something, where do you begin? Where do you start? And for us, it's as though we're a resource hub.
So so with that significant number of how large your community is, so how do you serve everybody within that community? Because everybody's going to have different needs. So you spoke of the woman who started off with a bar of soap. Sounds like she's an incredibly successful entrepreneur based in Arizona. She's a different person. Her business needs are different. So how do you manage that?
So it's interesting because we have two different communities of people that are coming to us. We
Hmm.
have those who are looking to start businesses, and those who are looking to start businesses either want to be on the plant touching side of the industry
Hmm.
or the ancillary side. And then we have the groups of people who are looking to launch careers,
Hmm.
right? Whether they are transitioning in like I did, or just going from an entrepreneur to deciding, I want to work for one of these companies. And so it's those two buckets that we have to serve. And what's amazing is that, when you have a woman who has who started out with a bar of soap and now has a successful business, what is she looking for? She's looking for employees.
Hmm.
She's looking for people to run her business, and she can very much find that at our events. There may be someone who wants to build up their knowledge base. We've started something during this pandemic called hashtag adult homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
And that really came from parents being at home with their kids. People, the majority of people, of course, were working from home. And we thought, why not bring the education to where people are?
Mm-hmm.
And so we partnered with this amazing company called Green Flower, where we've identified courses that speak to our community. Those who are looking to perhaps get certification in CBD, right? For those who are making products, infused products, uh, understanding and learning the essentials of the industry, Cannabis 101, as well as Sell Smart. And Sell Smart is actually more of a compliance course,
Mm-hmm.
especially for
Good.
those who are within the plant touching space. We want to make sure that you are following regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started out with those 4 courses. It's not limited to that, but those are the 4 we identified based on the requests that we're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's looking to begin a career in this industry, it's important to have those business essentials. I took Cannabis 101 over. Why? Because no matter how long you've been in this industry, you can always learn something else. And I say that over and over. I'm a student of this industry. I don't see myself as an expert because I think we're always all learning, right? Like
Well,
there's
and
a
the research is ever changing. I mean, I know I'm in the graduate program in medical cannabis science, and the information that's available to us now. I mean, speaking about moms in the industry, what is available now on the side effects of cannabis to adolescent brain? Um, I would have had a far stronger message knowing what I know now to what I was talking when I was having my conversation with my daughters who are now in their 30s. It's yeah, and it's it's just to the science is ever changing. I mean, it's incredibly exciting. The industry. Here we are, a couple of days after the presidential election, still unknown, but yet we are celebrating what we're calling the green wave in the industry. 4 states have either added a medical program, added a recreational program, or like the most conservative state, South Dakota, voting in both recreational and adult use at the same time, which
incredible.
is truly, truly powerful. 1 in 3 Americans now have access to medical cannabis or
It's
cannabis, whether medical or recreational. It's
so
saying a
incredible.
lot.
It is. It really is. And so we had 5 states that passed
Yeah.
on election night. But what's interesting is that 2020 has really been the year for this green wave. So Maine passed adult use several years ago, and they're only just coming online this year.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have Vermont, very much the same thing, coming online this year. And now we've got 5 more states, as you said, for that are adult use. And then you've got Mississippi who came on for medical.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's incredible to see the evolution, right? That's happening in front of us. And I honestly believe it's what's pushing this is the conversations that are being had.
Right. I mean, and that's, education is we share that in our tagline. Cannabis MD's tagline is educate, build, and engage. And the way, education, what we're referring to is helping to remove the stigma that surrounds the plant
Absolutely.
and the medicine. And to that point is educating our physicians, which is and our healthcare providers, which is there's such an incredible void. If you again, 1 in 3 adults, if we're considering age 21 and above, have now access or will when these laws are actually
Mhm.
enacted. It does
Mhm.
take a while to actually have the product in the state, but that said, um, 90% of U.S. medical schools do not deliver education on cannabis science. So, how do you serve this population that to everybody to stay healthy and safe? And does Women Grow have any plans as far as that goes on driving the education to the providers?
So it's interesting. We just had our very first health equity town hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the partners, so again, during this pandemic, we thought, since we can't go out and meet the people, let's meet them where they are. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're creating these partnerships with, as I said, with Green Flower. We have one with a company called the ArcView Group,
Mm-hmm.
which focuses more on investing.
Mm-hmm.
And we just connected with Aurelius Data
Yes.
and out of Montana. And so we just did a health equity panel, a discussion with her, and we had incredible doctors on. And part of that was really to draw to not only patients, but also healthcare professionals. Because you're right, we're finding even at our events, do you know how many doctors and nurses and just healthcare provider types come to our meetings just to learn?
Yeah. Yeah. And they're
And
asking,
or asking,
yeah,
where can I go to get a CME?
right.
Like where can I go to get this information? Because it wasn't taught in med school. And I feel like I'm starting out with the rest of you, which is interesting, right? And so it's incredible the amount of doctors, I will say, and I commend you because we supported you for your recent
Yeah. The Flora.
symposium.
Yes. Yes. Our
Your
cannabis
forum was
science. Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you.
So incredible. And we do, we want to see more of that.
Yeah.
And we want to introduce more of that to our community, because what we've also learned is that a lot of the medical professionals are part of our community already. And they're asking for the very same things, whether they're moms in cannabis or nurses in cannabis or what have you, they're asking. And so we're hoping through our education partner to bring more of that type of information, but also we're looking to do more partnerships overall, right? Because it's not only the healthcare professionals, it's also the patients that want to learn more. And we want patients
You
to
know,
become
and
more informed.
yeah, and absolutely. I mean, to that point, and you know, it's the reality is that the physicians are going to the patients, and we desperately need a paradigm shift. And in the middle are the dispensary attendants or the bud tenders. They're 21 years old. There is no, you know, depending upon your state, there's no regulation or minimal regulation on their education. And oh, I find it something that's extremely frustrating. You know, certainly as I'm a medical cannabis patient, when I had my first recommendation and I walked into a dispensary, asked for the terpene that was recommended by my provider, and the attendant, what's that? And he looked in a notebook. And it was scary. I mean, it was alarming. And, you know, I know enough to know that he should know better, but
Right.
not everybody, not every patient is like that. So we truly need to have a paradigm shift and
Absolutely.
support our providers and also support our attendants, the bud tenders as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So again, being in New York City, uh, our program here is rather limited. And so
Right.
when I think about um, the pharmacists that are at our dispensaries, thankfully they are informed, right? But you're absolutely right. I have gone to dispensaries where bud tenders were not as informed, but I've also gone to dispensaries where bud tenders were so well trained, and
Mhm.
I felt
There,
so
yes,
good
there
about
are
that,
those. Yes, absolutely.
because you can tell that the dispensary operator wanted to make sure their bud tenders were delivering the right information to patients and or customers.
Hmm.
So I think that that's so important, and you're absolutely right, we have to keep doing it. We should do something together.
I'm gonna say, as we're done with this, we're gonna talk. But in the meantime, is New Jersey. So New Jersey, your next door neighbor, has come online with recreational, which good and bad, you know, considering what we're talking about. I mean, great for New Jersey. Build up the tax base. I mean, all the positive things, access, but still, most likely, as you were saying, you know, it's limited access for patients in New York. New Jersey's a hop skipping away.
It is.
Um, So I mean, it's even more, even a greater need for education across, as we talked, the providers, the patients, and again, the attendants.
You
So,
know,
yeah.
New York, I guarantee by 2021 we'll be going legal.
Yeah.
I'm certain of that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've been advocating not only in New Jersey, not only across the country, but in New Jersey specifically, as well as in New York.
Hmm.
Our governor just said that, it's the right time. Honestly, at the start of the pandemic, we had already scheduled Women in Cannabis Lobby Day for New York State. We had over 200 women signed up to lobby March 8th, 2020.
Mm.
And then, the pandemic hit, right? And so we had to shelf that. And I will tell you, the more and more New Jersey had already started their early voting, I knew it's time. Like, we got to get back to this.
Yeah.
And so don't be surprised if you hear, or see us promoting another virtual lobby day, because unfortunately we're not, um, buildings or mass gatherings are still not allowed. But it's the right time. It's the
And
right time for New York to do this. It's the
mhm.
right time to encourage education. And I liked what you said before in terms of our higher education institutions also are lacking. We know that colleges and certain universities across the country are introducing this. And I believe at this point, there may be like anywhere between 15 to 20 colleges either have a certificate program. I know University of Maryland has the graduate program.
Right.
I personally,
Yeah, the School of Pharmacy. Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I personally would like to see, and I am doing my best to advocate that our in-state community colleges, as well as state colleges, have some form of cannabis education involved. Because if we plan on bringing this as an adult use market, I believe that we should be hiring from within the state. I
Right.
believe we should be educating our students who will eventually become maybe bud tenders, or maybe, some sort of professional within the space. And I think what better way to have a career choice, but then also have the education right here within your home.
Right, and also with the community colleges, there's one in my community, but it's far less expensive than that university degree, and it's a pathway to employment. And how powerful to apply for a job and say, yeah, I have a 2-year degree and a certificate in whether it's horticulture, whether it's in patient care. But what's interesting, so I had the opportunity early COVID, it was virtual, to speak to our community college. And the director of the entrepreneurial program there within the business school has been trying for years to include a cannabis focused, full on degree. Unfortunately, they are guided. Their board is has a stigma. They're uneducated. They're refusing. They've bought into this decades old stigma, and it's a dumb business move. It was here's a
It
way.
is.
It's
It
just dumb.
is. It's not a smart business move, but
Right.
the where it hurts the business and the community. And what I mean by the community, I'm so sorry, that's my intercom. Do you mind us
Nope, we can put
pausing?
it on pause. So we'll go with your
Okay.
bit. We'll talk about the community colleges. I'll put it on
Okay.
pause.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
So the reason why I believe it's not a smart business move, even with the stigmas around it, when you think about the small businesses that are operating in our industry, put aside all the other elements of it. Our accounting in this industry is so unique that it's important to begin to educate even our experienced professionals about the accounting that needs to happen in our
Oh,
industry.
true. Going to 280E and until
I
right,
was just going to
right,
bring up
yeah,
280E. And so we honestly are lacking the people, right? That would actually have that understanding. And given regulations are different from state over state, you have to educate the people within the state,
Right.
right? And so to me, that's where I feel like, we could have those advantages in educating those in community colleges, in our state universities, what have you. But I think it's a miss for people to continue to have the stigma and look over the fact of its importance of becoming more informed.
Yeah. Well, we'll close out with that, which is very, very powerful. Is that we've talked about the need for education, whether it be, and again, if you're within the educational system, the at the community school, at the community college
Yes.
level, to the college, university, undergraduate, and then of course university level. But to that point, interesting factoid as I was drilling down, and I have the opportunity. To speak at an international conference coming up on the lack of education, physician education in the US, and lessons to be learned from that across the globe. So, where did this start? Why is that? And it was 1970, President Ford made that decision that universities could no longer participate in research. So, in closing, we're talking about, and we share the passion, whether it's Cannabis MD and Women Grow and professionals across the country and the globe, on this need for education, whether it's at the community college base, college, university, and the university. But factoid on why it's not happening at the university level was actually President Gerald Ford in, I think I'm in 1970, 1971. Uh, Coming off the Reagan Just Say No heavy duty crazy drug campaign. And there was actually a significant study, it may be Stanford University, I may be wrong on that, where they had completed some research that had an outcome that was very, very powerful on cannabis having a success in treating breast cancer. And because of this war on
Wow.
drugs,
Mhm.
Ford shut that down. And it was because of that that universities are incredibly fearful of doing any plant-based or plant-touching, rather, studies, that they're going to lose their federal funding. The irony, of course, is Betty Ford died of breast cancer, and she's renowned for having addiction issues. So, makes you scratch your head on, what's that all about?
And also the fact that we've also had a facility in Mississippi for God knows how many years that they had an opportunity to do the
Powerful,
research.
right? And that goes off into a whole other conversation. Yeah, somebody had asked me, or we were having the conversation on LinkedIn, where when I shared Mississippi passing a medical program, well, is that going to release in the studies? One thing, unfortunately, does not have something to do with the other, but we're making headway. So, on that note, Gia, congratulations on the success, your personal success in the cannabis industry, the success through the efforts of Women Grow and your colleagues, of stories like the one with the bar of soap, and now she's an extremely successful entrepreneur in Arizona in a brand new adult market, no less.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. And congratulations to you. And I'm serious. Let's talk. I mean, that's what this is all about.
yeah.
Women partnering together, working together, and bringing our
All right,
knowledge
excellent. Well,
together.
thank you so much, Gia. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Jenny. Bye.